A long, long time ago, in what feels like another universe, that being 2016, I stumbled upon a humble vine featuring a lady spinning around with her cat. Discovering this was almost like discovering the meaning of life. The dancing, the really weird pants, and the cat just taking it all fits so well with the song used in the vine. The song was Resonance by Home, a banger that allowed the vine to excrete the heavenly vibe that it did. I instantly saved it to my playlist, but little did I know at the time that this song was a descendant of Vaporwave, one of the weirdest music genres ever shit out by humanity. And that over the next few years I'd have the pleasure, and displeasure, of exploring all that it had to offer as a genre. But hold on, what even is Vaporwave? To this day I can't tell you a concrete answer for that, other than it being first and foremost a subgenre of EDM. This is Vaporwave. So is this. But also, so is this. To some, it's simply slowed down 1980s and 90s tracks, and nothing else. To some, it's an aesthetic. Whoa, dude. To others, it's an art form. Music and nostalgia at its simplest. Or a Marxist critique of capitalism, with the glitz and glamour of the neon and commercialism. Or it's an FU to music, challenging what music can be. To others, actually most people, it's a meme and a joke. But given its deconstructive underpinnings, it was kind of meant to be from the beginning. To further get a gauge as for what it is, we have to look at those beginnings and the poster child for early Vaporwave. This album right here, EccoJams Vol.1. So here's how the creator of EccoJams, Daniel Lopatin, better known as One O Tricks Point Never, describes it himself.
So I do these things called EccoJams, and essentially EccoJams is like a really simple kind of practice that anybody can do if you have like really basic recording capabilities of grabbing a phrase from a track, slowing it down, and putting a bit of echo on it. So the sort of key then is, if everyone can do it, then what it reveals, each piece reveals something about what its producer likes about it. So I'm like always searching for like the juiciest moment in a pop track to sample, and then sort of strip away, pull away, deconstruct, and kind of swathe in echo and get into this hypnotic state with it.
This is actually one of the few times OPN has ever acknowledged the existence of EccoJams at all, and Vaporwave as a whole for that matter, even though he had a huge hand in creating it. And I reckon this was intentional, because he's aware of Barthes' concept of death of the author. It is his very lack of deeper meaning for it that gives it its deeper meaning, so listeners are able to pick it apart and find a meaning for it themselves. Barthes says, to give a text an author is to impose a limit upon that text, to furnish it with a final signified, to close the writing, and that when the author has been found, the text is explained. Separating himself from his work has allowed it to reach such heights of interpretation. After all, EccoJams itself is an interpretation, finding meaning from a sample and creating something new out of it. For example, EccoJams track A3, which has the most modern sample on the album, takes one line from JoJo's It's a Little Too Late, a harmless pop song, and loops it, creating an anthem for human anxiety and angst, but also an early 2000s nostalgia trip. Or the most well-known Echo track B4, aka Nobody Here, takes Chris de Burgh's Lady in Red, a song about a moment with a romantic interest, and turns it into an auditory representation of loneliness and helplessness. Truly horrifying stuff. But it's also turned into something that can be potentially calming, something reassuring, all while being one hell of an 80s nostalgia trip, even for those that never lived in that period. Lopatin brings these songs to new heights, based on what he saw in them, based on what was the juiciest bit for him. Each Echo track having its own special meaning for him that we'll never know, but he allows the listener to take it to their own heights. As Barthes said, the reader is the space in which all the quotations that make up a writing are inscribed without any of them being lost. A text unity lies not in its origin, but its destination. Lopatin was that destination at first, merely a listener. Then he took those tracks and deconstructed them, much like a theory. It became, in effect, the author. But I believe Barthes would disagree that he ever stopped being a listener. For Barthes, nothing is original. It's all fair game, and Vaporwave being a genre built on sampled tracks is indicative of this. But given the nature of music and art as a whole, in light of Barthes' philosophy, it can be taken in any direction it may go. It's no surprise that Vaporwave and its influences have taken a dip in the mainstream. In doing so, it becomes further and further separated from its original deeper meaning, or at least the deeper meaning that original listeners felt. Since 2009, hundreds of subgenres have sprung up, such as Outrun's 80s pop vibes that are easier listening for the masses, Synthwave's bubbly optimistic synths, Signal Wave's dissociative haze, and then there's Vapor Trap, Future Funk, Chill Wave, Slush Wave, etc., etc. So many waves, I feel like we've got a whole ocean out here. In recent years, this nostalgia for the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s has reached a point that has influenced the mainstream. It's Instagram story filters, music videos, video games, and one of my favorite examples, movie trailers and commercials. Why does this have an 80s feel to it when it has nothing to do with it? There's probably a good reason, but I'll never know. I find it quite ironic that what started out as a critique of the commercialism of pop music gave rise in part to the re-commercialism of it, in a dramatic display of the inability to move on from a feeling of nostalgia that is safe and will always appeal to the masses. It's this nostalgia wave that is so indicative of our inability to live in the present that EccoJams serves as a warning to. Because of this, many claim Vaporwave is dead today as a result. Barbara Johnson wrote about theory in the first paragraph of Nothing Fails Like Success. As soon as any radically innovative thought becomes an ism, its specific groundbreaking force diminishes. Its historical notoriety increases, and its disciples tend to become more simplistic, more dogmatic, and ultimately more conservative. Take Vaporwave remixes on YouTube, for example, such as this one, which is just a song slowed down by a set percentage, not even an 80s song. This video for Vaporwave, like Theory in Johnson's eyes, is the only experience some will ever get of what Vaporwave is, presenting a false simplicity and understanding of it. After all, many Vaporwave artists don't even use samples at all. Johnson says, it is only by forgetting what we know how to do, by setting aside the thoughts that have most changed us, that those thoughts and knowledge can go on making accessible to us the surprise of an otherness we can only encounter in the moment of suddenly discovering we are ignorant of it. For Johnson, the first step in not being able to understand something is believing you understand it, something EccoJams appears to say about memories, nostalgia, emotion, and our reliance on that moving forward in life. But who's to say that Meme Wave, Outrun, or anything else can't be interpreted in any which way, or that they aren't Vaporwave, or just an evolution of it? After all, Vaporwave itself was partly inspired and came from C-Punk and Cyberpunk, things that were around for years before. Our good old buddy LaPatin probably planned this ironic situation the whole time, the cheeky bastard. But what is music anyways but random sounds, a collection of vibration, beeps, and noises that are categorized, labeled, and organized? What associates the bass guitar with rock music and the steel guitar with country? How do we differentiate cloud trap from funk? After all, they're all just sounds. As explained by Judith Butler, gender is performative, separate from sex, produced through repetition and repeated influences that eventually create an identity. Music genres and classifications are no different than gender in her theory, while the sexes are the many different abstract sounds which we use to create genres through that very difference between them as we hear them, offering a sense of safety, security, and organization. It's the repetition and traditions that eventually allow abstract sounds to become classified as a certain type of music, or as music at all. But EccoJams, like Butler, allows us to look past that, throw it all away, and remind ourselves that music can be anything we want it to be, as long as we enjoy it. After all, that's the point of music, isn't it? Originally, I hated EccoJams and Vaporwave as a whole. I said, boy, what the hell is this? But since then, it has opened my eyes to what music really is. And it is Vaporwave and EccoJams that originally served to remind us of this. While it does ironically critique music and commercialism as much as Johnson does theory and understanding, in its very nature, it critiques itself. It says, why can't EccoJams' glitched, chopped, and screwed sound be music? Then why can't Outrun, or Vaporwave memes, or the random retro vibe in THOR RAGNAROK, or any music or art for that matter, have just the same deeper meaning for people if they find it to have that deeper meaning for themselves? All in all, Vaporwave and EccoJams are a pretty abstract concept, especially since it's pretty much the musical equivalent of a troll face. It's ironic that I'm sitting here analyzing it as music at all in the first place. But like what I saw in a lady in funky-ass pajamas spinning with her cat in a vine, I think LaPatin would say it doesn't matter anyways. It's whatever you make of it.